Hello, my name is Sophia. I am a university student, and today I want to tell you how I started learning English. This is a story about determination, challenges, and of course, achievements. Ever since I was a child, I've always been curious about other cultures. I enjoyed watching movies, listening to music, and even trying to understand some English words. But honestly, I never took it very seriously. I thought English was something I could learn someday, without any rush. Everything changed when I entered university. I clearly remember one specific day. It was my first semester, and I was very excited. The university organized a lecture with a guest professor from the United States. I was eager to learn something new, but I quickly realized that I didn't understand much of what he was saying. He spoke fast, used words I had never heard before, and I felt lost. At that moment, I realized something important. If I really wanted to take advantage of all the opportunities that the university had to offer, I needed to learn English. It was no longer a matter of someday. I needed to start now. The next day, I went to the library and picked up my first basic English book. I began studying on my own, dedicating a few hours every day. It was tough at first. I could barely understand simple sentences, and I felt frustrated. But gradually, I started to notice small improvements. Every new word I learned gave me a sense of accomplishment, and that motivated me to keep going. I also started watching videos in English, even though I didn't understand everything. I would repeat the words out loud, trying to imitate the pronunciation. I knew it would be a long journey, but I was determined. What surprised me was realizing how small daily actions began to make a big difference. I read, listened, wrote, and spoke in English every day, even if it was just a little. And it all started to add up. After deciding that I needed to learn English, I realized that studying just a few hours a week wouldn't be enough. If I really wanted to improve, I needed to make English a part of my daily life. That's when I discovered the power of total immersion. The first thing I did was change the language on my phone and computer to English. At first, this seemed a bit intimidating, but I quickly got used to it. Every time I needed to do something simple, like send a message or search for something on the internet, I was practicing English. I was surrounded by the language all the time, and it made a big difference. Another thing that helped me a lot was watching movies and TV shows in English, with English subtitles as well. At first, it was hard to keep up, but I didn't give up. I would pause when I didn't understand a word, write it down, and look up its meaning later. Gradually, I started to understand more and more. Additionally, the constant practice of listening to English helped improve my listening skills and train my ear to the sound of the language. I also started reading books in English, but I chose books that interested me and were at my level of understanding. I began with children's and young adult books because the vocabulary was simpler. Reading every day, even if just for 15 or 20 minutes, helped me learn new words and understand how they are used in different contexts. Another important step was starting to speak in English, even if I felt insecure. I practiced alone, speaking out loud to myself. Sometimes I pretended I was having a conversation with someone, answering questions and creating dialogues. At first, I made a lot of mistakes, but that was part of the process. The more I practiced, the more confident I became. One of the most important things I learned was that daily practice, even if for a short time, was much more effective than studying a lot in one day and then not practicing for several days. I realized that by surrounding myself with English and making it a part of my daily life, I started to think in the language more naturally and less forcibly. Total immersion allowed me to live in English, not just study it. And that made all the difference in my learning. I wasn't just learning a language, I was integrating English into my life, and that helped me learn much faster. Now, with this solid foundation, I began exploring other techniques that helped me progress even further. Over time, I began to notice that my understanding of English was improving. I could already understand more when I read and listened, but I still struggled when it came to speaking. I lacked confidence, and my pronunciation wasn't as clear as I wanted it to be. That's when I discovered a technique called shadowing, which completely changed the way I learned to speak English. Shadowing is a simple yet powerful technique. Here's how it works. You listen to someone speaking in English, and immediately after, you repeat what you heard, mimicking the rhythm, intonation, and the way the words are pronounced. The idea is to try to speak exactly like the original speaker, almost as if you were their echo. I started practicing shadowing every day. I would choose short videos, like interviews or movie clips, and repeat each sentence right after hearing it. At first, it felt a bit strange. I felt like I was just imitating, without fully understanding what I was doing. But gradually, I started to notice that my pronunciation was improving. I wasn't just learning how to pronounce words correctly. I was also capturing the natural rhythm of English speech. I began to pick up on nuances in intonation that I had previously missed. My speech, which had once been hesitant and awkward, began to flow more naturally. As time went on, shadowing also helped me build confidence. I was no longer as afraid of making mistakes when speaking because I was practicing constantly. It was like a daily workout for my speech muscles, which were getting stronger and more agile. One day, I realized how much I had progressed when, while watching a movie, I started repeating the characters' lines without even noticing. It was automatic, and that showed me that shadowing was really working. My pronunciation and fluencies were transforming. This daily practice not only improved my speech, but it also gave me the confidence I needed to express myself better in English. I no longer felt trapped by words. Instead, I was free to say what I thought, clearly and naturally. That's how shadowing became an essential part of my English learning journey. And each day of practice brought me closer to speaking like a native, something that had once seemed so far out of reach. As I continued improving my English, I realized there was something even more important than just practicing speaking or writing: how I thought in the language. At first, I used to translate everything into English in my head before speaking. This made the process slow and often confusing. That's when I discovered the importance of thinking directly in English. In the beginning, it was challenging. My mind was so used to thinking in my native language that it automatically translated everything. But I decided to change that. I started to push myself to think in English, even in simple daily situations. For example, when I woke up, I would remind myself, think in English, and I would describe my routine or my surroundings in English. If I was getting ready for the day, I would think about what I needed to do next, all in English. Over time, this practice became easier. I no longer needed to translate every word or sentence. Thinking in English started to feel natural, and this made a huge difference in my fluency. By skipping the translation step, I could form sentences more quickly and naturally. Another thing that helped me a lot was speaking out loud what I was thinking. I would talk to myself in English about my plans for the day or describe what I was doing. These small conversations with myself helped make English a regular part of my thoughts. I remember one day when I was studying for a test at university. I decided to write all my notes in English, even though the subject wasn't related to learning the language. Writing everything in English forced me to think and write in the language the entire time. At first, it was challenging and slow, but I soon realized that I was learning much more than just the material. I was also improving my English. This change in mindset was a turning point in my learning journey. I stopped seeing English as a foreign language that I needed to translate and started seeing it as a natural part of my thinking process. This brought me a sense of freedom that I had never felt before. Thinking in English also helped me overcome the fear of making mistakes. When you translate everything, there's more pressure to be perfect because you're trying to say everything exactly right. But when you think directly in English, you allow yourself to be more creative and less worried about perfection. This gave me the confidence to speak more and express myself better, even when I wasn't sure if everything was correct. Over time, I realized that thinking in English wasn't just a learning technique. It was a way to connect more deeply with the language. And this shift in mindset helped me progress in ways I never imagined. As I progressed on my English learning journey, one crucial truth emerged. Consistency was the cornerstone of success. I realized that it wasn't about cramming all my study into one day and then neglecting it for the rest of the week. To truly make progress, I had to weave English into the fabric of my daily life, making it a consistent habit. Every single day, no matter how busy I was, I committed to practicing English. It didn't always require long study sessions. Sometimes just 15 minutes of reading or listening to a podcast on my way to class. But the key was that I interacted with the language every day. This daily practice started to add up. I noticed that even on days when I felt like I hadn't learned much, the cumulative effort was making a big difference. My vocabulary was expanding, my listening comprehension was improving, and most importantly, I was gaining confidence in my ability to communicate in English. Consistency also taught me to be patient. Learning a language is a long process, and it's easy to get frustrated when results don't appear immediately. But by practicing every day, I began to see that small improvements added up over time, creating a solid foundation for fluency. Another important aspect of consistency was repetition. Repeating activities like reading, shadowing, and even thinking in English reinforced what I had learned and solidified my knowledge. Each time I revisited a word or a grammatical structure, it became a little more familiar, a little more natural. Over time, daily practice became a habit, something I did without even thinking about it. English was no longer a task or a challenge. It became a part of my everyday life. This not only helped me learn faster, but also made the learning process more enjoyable and less stressful. Looking back, I can see that it was consistency that truly led me to fluency. It wasn't a single moment or a specific technique, but the commitment to practice every day, no matter the circumstances. And that's the lesson I want to share with you. If you want to learn English or any other language, the key is daily and consistent practice. This journey taught me that learning English is much more than memorizing words or grammar rules. It's about incorporating the language into your life and growing with it day by day. And with patience, dedication, and above all, consistency, you can achieve fluency and much more. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. It would mean a lot to me and really help me out. I'm grateful for your support, and I look forward to bringing you more content. Thanks again, and see you in the next video.